They feed that out. Now look at how long that spoke is. And y'all are really going to laugh about this one because I'm not a golfer. I'm not a golfer. I like to play golf, but I relate golfing and roping so much together because I had a great friend that was a professional golfer, and he gave me my first golfing lesson, and it's like he fitted me for clubs and this and that, and I'm like, why am I doing all this? Okay? Well, what I realized is the angle, the way you stand, you know, how you hold your hand, so on and so forth, makes a big difference. Well, it goes back to the spoke. It goes back to controlling the tip of that rope, and whenever my spoke is too long, I don't have a balanced loop because all the weight's on the tip of my rope. But guess what I have very little of? Tip. What do we catch with? Tip. That would be like as good as I am at golfing, which is horrible, going out there and trying to hit a drive with a club head that's that big around. Okay? I have to go to the chiropractor right now every time I go to the tee box because I usually hit the ground, and they don't make a club head big enough for my drives, okay? So what I'm getting at there is if we're catching with the tip of our rope, I would want more tip. So your spoke length should not be more than an arm length or 25% of your loop. And that's when I start out. That's when I start out. I haven't even fed that yet. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You know how you're talking about feeding your loop?
Mm-hmm. No, ma'am, you don't. And that is a great question. A lot of people will ask the question, I don't feed my rope very good, is it okay if I don't? My recommendation to you is definitely try to learn how to feed. But you see people, they pick a rope up, and when they're trying to learn how to feed, they'll see how I'm accelerating right there and pushing. I'm trying to make that rope feed. You don't ever want to force it. You want to guide it, and your feed should be on your back and outswing. If I'm feeding on my upswing, then all it's going to do is put my tip up and in the front and down in the back. If I'm feeding on my backswing, it's the exact same thing. If I'll take my time and learn to pick it up and go out nice and slow, you want to do it on the outswing. And it's usually your first or your second swing, and you're done. You don't have to. The reason that we want to is it's easier to pick these smaller loops up and get started. If I'm trying to pick a real big loop up, it takes me longer to get it going around myself and my horse. Okay? Good questions. Very good questions.
I'm going to make this announcement real quiet because Krece Harris is doing his deal, but we found a bit that was already paid for in the Justin booth. There was a bit already paid for, and it's at customer service now.
So to kind of wrap up the head and side on the groundwork, what I'm after when I do my groundwork is balance. Again, doesn't matter if it's left foot forward. If I step left foot forward, my shoulders are square. If I step right foot forward, I still want to keep my shoulders square. That's the key. Make sure that you understand what you're doing with your left hand. Make sure you understand what you're doing with your left hand. If you're one of these that holds your left hand right here and you trap yourself, how many times have we seen this? We go to balancing right here. If you're already putting your left hand against your stomach right here while you're swinging your rope, all you're doing is creating muscle memory to pull on your horse and balance on your horse as you're trying to rope. If your left hand's stuck out here, that's going to become muscle memory. We want to ride those horses. We want to have everything set right here to where when I go into my delivery, everything is out in front. Okay? And I can push that left hand forward to pull that slack. That leads me into something else. All right? That leads me into something else. When your wrist is down like this, and you're roping the dummy, and I throw that out there in front, where's my slack at right here? It's all the way at the end of my coils, isn't it? So what's the first move I'm going to make whenever I go to pull my slack? I want to pull my coils to me. If my wrist is up like this, where's my slack now? There's my delivery. Where's my slack? Waiting on me. Now do y'all understand what I'm talking about? The small things make the big amount of difference. And it's kind of hard to keep control of your horse with your wrist down. I've had a lot of fun with that in my clinics because I get some of those guys in there that are about 6'4" and weigh 250, 260. And they'll hold their rope like that while they're roping the dummy, and I'll walk up and I'll grab their wrist, and they'll pull back away from them, but they have no leverage. They have no leverage whatsoever. And I'll tell them to lock their wrist up, and as soon as they do, they pick me straight up off the ground. Okay? Because now they've got their feet. They're not broke over right there. Okay? On the heeling side. This is something that's probably changed more for me. I'd say more for all of us as healers than anything else, because for so long we were taught to get to the inside. You know, it was just done a lot different 30, 40 years ago. And when I say this, you can still do it that way. But I'm big on analogies, kind of like my golfing. I'm big on analogies. I remember as a kid, my dad ran his company with pen and paper. Okay? That was the way everybody did it then. Now they're doing it with computers, just a little more efficient, right? So, saying that, whenever we rope, and we're roping these dummies, muscle memory, again, I'm going to go back into muscle memory. I'm not a fan of roping these dummies when I'm doing my groundwork swinging over the top of the back when I'm doing my groundwork, especially when those legs are up. Why? Your tip's going to be too high. Your tip is going to be too high. If I practice doing this all the time, getting my tip up and over right here, what do I have to do to catch? I have to drop to catch. Now, imagine that you're sitting on your horse and this right here becomes muscle memory to you. Okay? So now that I get in the saddle, I'm another 2-3 foot higher. Agree? If not more. So instead of my tip being right here, because I've been practicing over the steer's back, it's actually like this right here. So anytime that I'm doing my groundwork on sleds, and those feet are off the ground, which that's usually the way I rope them, and I recommend that you rope them, your legs are off the ground. Practice swinging behind those legs so you're practicing getting your tip down through your corner, okay? And when we rope, we want to bring our tip to the target, like that right there. Day and age of us putting that rope in front of those legs is gone. We're not trying to reach around and put that rope in front of those legs for them to hop into. We're swinging the top strand tip of that rope to that right hock, and the bottom strand sits down. So when that rope comes out of our hand, we're shaking hands with the right leg. The 3 common mistakes you see made healing is we end up hitting front leg. Why do we hit front legs? You let go too soon. Let go too soon. You're out of time, and we'll talk about timing in a minute. But whenever I go into my delivery, I let go out here, and my tip hits way up there, okay? Another common mistake that's made. I see my tip go in. It goes in every single time, but I keep roping an inside leg, or it gets kicked right back out at me. Why is that? My tip went in, but my hand rolled over. My hand rolled over, okay? And then I'll come back to you in just a second on that one. And then the third one is I saw it go in and it shot all the way through on me. Completely shot through on me, okay? The reason that happens is you hold on to your slack. Whenever you let go of your loop, you let go of your slack strand at the same time, okay? But for so long, in all the pictures that we see in the magazines, all of those pictures we see in the magazine, what do they look like? Everybody's hands just like that, isn't it? Do you know how many people I've had come to me and say, I'm doing it just like I see it and I can't get it? Well, the problem is right here, that steer's already caught. You're looking at the wrong piece of the picture. Or that rope is completely out of my hand at this stage. I've already let go of it here and I'm rolled over to pick my slack up. So when it comes out of my hand, and if it worked, I should be able to hook this on there and catch every single time. But if my hand rolls over, my bottom strand should stay up or stay down. Agreed? If that worked. My bottom strand keeps rolling up. Now look at the difference when I shake hands with the right leg. Okay? A lot of people will talk to me about that little piece of it right there. Again, we're using the tip of our rope to catch with. We're using the tip of our rope to catch with. So we want to be able to bring that tip in. When I come through the corner as I'm running down the arena, I'm watching the hip or the rear end of that steer, the back end of that steer, because that's my job, is to stay with that piece of the steer. If you've heeled long enough, people are guilty as heelers that they got caught up watching the head catch. Watch the head catch, and then we react a little bit too soon, we cut our corner. This is going to lead me into my next piece of it. But we get stuck there. Instead, my job is to watch this part of the steer. As I make my corner, where does my sight change to? To my target. So as I come through the corner, I can be looking at the hip and the rear end as the steer makes the corner, and my horse comes around the corner. I'm not looking there anymore. I start zeroing in when that steer's hip gets to the outside of me right there. But I've got to stay with him right here, so when I get to position, I'm ready to swing my rope down there and catch, okay? When I talk about this, I talk about this strictly to simplify it in your mind. Because you can go watch any videotape out there, and I promise you, you're going to see the same thing over and over. And if you're in that videotape, you're going to see yourself do it. Probably the number one question I'm asked as far as heeling goes is timing. How many of us have been up and down that road? Okay? Here's the best way that I can simplify timing for you in your mind. You're going to have natural timing whether you think you do or not, because when you crawl in that saddle and you ride your horse and that horse strides and you're swinging your rope, what are you going to do when that horse comes down? Where's your swing going to be? It's going to come forward and down. Agreed? It's kind of hard to swing down when your horse is coming up in their stride, and then when they come down in the stride, swing back. Makes it pretty difficult. Okay? I always say that's free practice. You don't even have to go wrap the steers for that. You can go saddle your horse after work, crawl on, take your rope with you, lope some circles, and swing your rope. And you're going to teach yourself a lot of natural timing. Now, if what I'm telling you here is we're timing our horse with our swing, you're going to swing down and your rope's going to come down and onto the left side, because that's the thing about the heeling. We want to be high on the right, low on the left. But we want that tip down over here with that horse's stride. When that horse's front left leg hits the ground and it's down on the ground, we're going to be at the bottom of our swing. Okay? So you're sitting there saying, okay, how do I time the hop of the steer? What does that have to do with the time of the hop of the steer? When I match the speed of my horse to the speed of the steer, guess what? Guess what's always back? The steer's legs. Okay? Do you understand how when we're taught to swing over the back of these steers, when you're on your horse, you're trying to get your tip over? I was talking to Patrick a while ago. He's got the driven video out. Great video. I told him, I said, I like everything about your video except for one thing. He said, what's that? And I said, you beat me to it. Okay? His video was outstanding. Outstanding. But he breaks every one of those runs down and he puts them in slow motion. He backs them up, reverses them in slow motion, plays them forward in slow motion, backs them back up. And every time that horse's front left leg's on the ground, guess where his tip is? Down, right over there. Guess what's back? Because running down the arena, I'm going to lead you into that part of it. When we're running down the arena, how many times has this happened to us? What's our first job as a heeler, gang? Got a haze, right? So we jump out, we run down the arena. We may not even be swinging our rope yet, but our first job is to get out here and get this steer hazed. And when we get them hazed, then we pick our rope up and we start getting ready. And then when we see the head rope go by and that steer gets caught, and if you get trapped watching the head catch, what's the first thing you see a lot of lower numbered ropers do? They start slowing that horse down, and the steer keeps moving, they're slowing down, and before you know it, when they get ready to make the corner, they're back here. Agreed? Well, if I match my speed of the horse to the speed of the steer in my haze, I've already matched my timing. What do the open ropers do? What are the guys doing here? When the head rope goes on, are they slowing down or are they riding up there with that hip? They're staying in that same spot to follow that hip. Does that help y'all understand the timing part of it again? Because the reason that I break that down for you in that manner is because I think it's difficult enough for us to get on a horse, ride a horse, swing a rope, and again, hope that that steer is handled good enough and hops out of there good enough for us to come around that corner and be ready to rope them. Is there timing to it? You bet there is. You've got to recognize the fact that the legs are coming back. But what I'm trying to get through to you here is the legs will be back as soon as you match the speed of your horse to the speed of the steer. If I back out of the picture, now I've got to accelerate my horse to get back in there. I haven't matched it. I don't have timing right there. If I'm able to get to position and stay in position, then I've already matched that right here. Okay? Every videotape out there, watch them. Every videotape out there, watch them. Horse's front left leg will be on the ground, tip will be down on that side, the heeler will be out here in position, and it's already matched before you make the corner. And I like to talk about this one right here, because I am big on videotapes. I like to video my students. I like to play them in slow motion. I like to watch open runs. But in the Hort Dog 8, Travis Graves, B.J. Campbell both roped a steer that went down, came back up. Have y'all seen it? Yeah, B.J. Campbell's run down the arena. Steer, the header sets the steer, good set. The steer's legs just go out from underneath him, and he pancakes on the ground. And B.J. never quits riding his horse. He keeps his swing going with his horse, and as soon as that steer jumps up, he's going into a delivery. Where was the timing of the hop on that one? And people say, oh, it was just lucky. No, that wasn't lucky. The guy stayed hooked right there. The guy stayed hooked. He never quit swinging his rope with his horse's stride and never quit riding, so when that steer came up, he was able to go into a delivery because the speed is matched right there. Okay? Same deal with Travis. Travis has one go down, jumps to the inside. It was a blind shot, couldn't see him. If we're supposed to recognize the hop of the steer, how do you catch a steer that you can't see? Right? Kind of starts making us think, okay, what's the deal here? Kind of makes us think. So that's why at all those clinics for years and years and years, I was roping the sleds, but the legs were moving. I think they're a great training tool, outstanding training tool. When I went to roping sleds with those legs hanging straight down, I saw the level of improvement out of those heelers quadruple. Because now they started riding around that corner, and when they got there, they were ready to rope. And we've all heard as a heeler, your first 3 shots are your best 3 shots, right? And then after that, it goes to pot. I've had heelers come up to me and say, why don't you make a videotape of how to catch steers behind headers that don't know how to handle cattle? Yeah, nobody's done that videotape. Well, here's how you catch it. I told him, I said, it's the same thing. You got to stay with the hip of the steer. That's your target. Don't get trapped into that header ducking out. Stay with the hip of the steer. Clay O'Brien Cooper, it took us all a decade to figure out how that man was kicking our rear ends all those years, because he was sitting in the middle of his horse, riding his horse to that spot and roped it whenever it presented itself. The rest of us are crawling out over those horses trying to make something happen. It didn't work. Now everybody figured it out. Right? Everybody's figured that part of the game out. So I want to be able to use my horse to help me rope. And how we've all experienced it, but we go in there and we get ready to rope a steer, and when we get ready to rope a steer, we'll move our chin and we'll move our body, and what's the first thing those hill horses do? They peg that front end, and when they peg that front end, what does it do to you? It pulls you straight down, and your tip goes straight down. if I'll ride my horse into that delivery and I bring my horse around that corner and I'm riding him in, when he hits that spot right there, I'm using my horse to help me deliver my rope. That's where I want to go all the way to the bottom of my delivery. When I do, my horse drops his rear end, and I try to stay behind my saddle horn. Again, if that steer takes a big jump away, you've got to lean a little bit to rope him, right? But the arm has to go, then the body follows it out there. If my body goes first and I haven't roped, I'm done. I'm done. Because they don't want to end up over there where the announcer stand is, or in the announcer stand. I've never to this day seen reiners go and lope their circles, slow circles, fast circles, do their spins, and then right before they slide those horses 20 foot to a stop, they run them down their end, they say, whoa, and stand up. I've not seen a cutter cut a cow out of the herd and get them separated, and before they set their hand down, they put their hand down, they stand up and say, okay, go ahead and work. Everybody sits down, right? So if we'll stay in the middle of that saddle and ride that horse into that delivery, you'll get the big stop, you'll get that big deep stop, because if I finish my delivery and stay down on that delivery and stay behind my saddle horn, my horse will hit that deep stop. Makes the dally super easy. Super easy, okay? The last thing right here. When I go into my delivery on my groundwork, again, I started the whole seminar out talking about proper groundwork versus improper groundwork, where we can create good habits or bad habits. This is one of the most common ones I see. People walk up to a dummy and they'll go, okay? Step back up, back away from it, step back up to it and go. The longer I stand over here and do this, the more proud of myself I'm getting, okay? Because it looks good and it sounds good. Maybe my buddy saw me do it. All you're doing by lifting that slack like that when you're doing your groundwork is teaching yourself not to finish your delivery. Probably had 6 or 7 people to ask me that same question this week. I'm catching that leg every single time and it feels great and it feels great and everything's set up. My timing's perfect. I know I took the right shot and I rope a leg. Why? I said, let's go rope the dummy. First thing I see. We're more worried about picking that slack up. And the reason that we get stuck in that mindset right there is because you burned your hand as a healer trying to dally. So we don't finish what we start. We get about halfway into it right there and we start lifting that slack to get back to that saddle horn. Look at your delivery. Look at your loop on the ground. Everything's set here. Tips down on this side. I've got my swing set. I'm behind the legs. I've got my tip down. I go into my delivery. My hand standing straight up and down, and I stopped at the right leg and I'm extended. Looks about like my hand. I'm happy with it. My bottom strand's on the ground. My tip came all the way through. Now I can go pick my rope up and do it again. Or if you want to pick your slack up, look at your loop for 2 or 3 seconds before you lift your slack. What that does is it, again, trains your mind and your muscles to finish what you start. Okay? Any questions about the healing? Again, everything that we just went over. Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Did everybody hear his question? Said, as far as hazing goes, how high do you want your horse on that steer? Horsemanship 101, or cattle working 101. When we're at the hip of a steer, what are we doing? Or bovine. When we got our horses At the hip of the steer, we're driving. If we get them up to the shoulder, we're doing what? We're turning. So if I get too high, I'm going to start shoving them over in front of my headers. If I can maintain right there my horse's nose even with the hip of that steer, now that's a great question for this reason. Because we cut up about it yesterday. If you got one of those headers that really likes to drop out of there pretty hard, a lot of times when I see their rope go by, they've already got their ropes out of my way now. I don't have to worry about hitting them, but I'll see their rope go by, I'll step my horse up. I'll kind of step my horse up to that shoulder. What does that do to the steer? It starts them that direction. I can go ahead and throw them into that left lead and move that steer away from me a little bit so it softens the blow a little bit. It's a great question. Great question. Your haze is established the first 10, 15 foot out of the box. That might mean that you're still back here, but if I'm 10 or 15 foot out of the box and the steer's up there, my haze is still going to be established at this point. Why? Because the header should still be in the box somewhere or coming out of the box. I'm in front. So right here, that steer's going to recognize me before it recognizes the header. Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir. Where do I look when I'm heeling? I'm looking at my target. When I'm coming around the corner, I'm looking right through here. I'm looking right through here. If that steer's moving, you know what I mean? If that steer is kind of, when you see the head rope go by, you'll recognize whether or not that steer checks off or keeps that momentum carrying right there. If that steer checks off and starts to shuffle a little bit, I will change my sights. I will change my sights right through here. The reason that I change the sights is because that's the largest window. It's kind of like a steer that's dragging. When a steer's dragging, you've got to bring your rope in like that, right? Well, it's just the same deal. If that steer's shuffling, he's going to have one leg like that and one leg like that. So instead of looking right here and hitting it and it falling out, I'm going to look right through here to try to bring that in like that. I'm just going to raise it from the hock up to the flank and try to poke that tip in. Any other questions? Hey gang, I hope you enjoyed your little rest. That's what I've cut up about all week is most of my seminars and the people that show up are here because they're tired of shopping, so they come rest their legs. And in the process, I get an audience from it. But I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you all so much for being here this week. Hope you enjoy the NFR. What a great place to be. And if you have any questions, feel free to come by my booth. Again, I'll show you that stuff on videotape that we talked about. But and I'm talking about all of it. From the heading, squaring your shoulders to your target, where your feet are, to the heeling, the tip, every bit of it, we'll show it to you. But thank y'all all for being here.